All right, welcome everyone. This is our first meeting of 2026 for the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee. Zach?
I'm going to invite Ryder to come forward to the main podium. He's going to lead us in the flag salute. If everyone could rise for the flag salute. Yeah, perfect. Okay, right in the center. There you go, Ryder. He's going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right on. Thanks, Ryder. Way to go. Appreciate it. Yeah, you may be seated.
Okay, I'll call to order our meeting, and Zach will do a roll call.
Yeah. Committee Member Trujillo.
Here.
Committee Member Portman.
Here.
Committee Member Ham.
Here.
Chair Hall.
Present.
Vice Chair Rogers.
Here.
Committee Member Covington. Here. Wonderful.
We have any oral communications?
We do. Layla Sackfield, yeah.
Good evening, Chair Hall and the rest of the committee here. Also, the community members present. My name is Leila Sackfield, and I am a person who fought very hard to approve Measure I. And so I wanted to come tonight to specifically thank Pat Hall for attending the community improvement projects meetings, the community meetings that occurred. I think as members of this oversight committee, it's really important. I am holding myself accountable to making sure that I'm going to all budgeting conversations, being able to contribute to Escondido.com of what kinds of things we think are priorities. And I just want to really encourage all of you to do the same, to be very active and involved in that process, because as the City Council brings forward things for you to oversee, you want to be sure that they truly are reflective of what the community would like to see happen with that money within the framework of the priorities that the City Council has set. And then as community members, I'm going to work with my community to make sure that we hold the city accountable for making sure that those priorities are actually what we want. Because I worked on that measure to not only ensure my physical safety, which is a very large priority that has been reiterated over and over again, I want to make sure that that proposal also provides me the quality of life that I want for myself and new families that are coming into our community. So thank you, Mr. Hall. And if I went to 4 of those meetings, so if any of you went to the other 2, that's great too. But I did want to specifically thank Mr. Hall for doing that.
Thank you so much. No further public comments on this item. Thank you, Chair Hall. So yeah, I'm going to give a brief presentation as to this particular item. So quick overview. The goal of the audit that is before you is to support transparency and public accountability, verify the proper use of Measure I revenues, and confirm compliance with the ordinance that was adopted by the voters. A couple of things for background. We submitted the RFP back in October timeframe, and we received 1 response. So I wanted to let you know that's why we took our time before we were going to schedule interviews with various individuals, but 1 submitted, and that's the submission that's before you this evening, and they are a qualified agency, so we're presenting them for potential approval. Give you the background on this particular group, MGO. They have 35 years of public sector experience, one of the California's largest government auditors, and then they have extensive experience specifically with voter-approved tax measures. Oh, and my apologies, if you're not seeing the presentation on your screen, you can hit presentation as opposed to home panel, and then you'll be able to see it, and then you should be getting a view of it. Everyone got it now? All right, I'm so sorry, I should have said that before. They're independent and nationally recognized. Here are a few of the groups that they've worked with, specifically local agencies: Oakland, Fremont, Pleasant Hill, and Sacramento, specific to local tax measures, and then for county measures, Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Contra Costa. The proposed scope of services includes the following: reviewing the Measure I revenues and expenditures, complying with the voter-approved purposes, an internal control evaluation, and an annual audit report. That audit is required per the ordinance that was adopted by the voters, and it needs to be produced 90 days after the fiscal year ends. So they are aware of that time frame. They'll have to work with the city in order to meet that time frame, but that is their awareness, just for the committee's edification. Their audit approach is a risk-based audit planning, transaction-level testing and data analytics, review of payroll, vendor payments, and administrative costs, ongoing coordination with city staff. They'll work very closely with Christina Holmes, our finance director, on that, and a clear communication with the Oversight Committee. They can deliver presentations and updates as needed and requested. Timeline is as follows. They would begin their planning in June and July of 2026. They would do their field work during July and August. They would draft a report in September and then issue their final report end of September, early October is their target. The cost summary is as follows. For fiscal year, it would be a 3-year contract. First year is $33,040. Then in 2027, $35,490. And then 2028, $36,590. And it's all-inclusive pricing, meaning they don't have any additional add-ons. Everything is included. They would perform the work, including their presentations for that cost. Next steps, you can review this proposal for you this evening, hear from the public if the public has any input, and provide direction to staff. You could also approve the approve the proposal before you this evening, and that is personally my recommendation, since if we were to restart the RFP process, it would take a number of months for us to get additional inquiries, but we could go that route. But the official recommendation I have is approve the proposal that's submitted by MGO. So any questions or comments? Before that, I did not receive any public comments, submissions. Does anyone want to speak to this item at all, or any comments? No? All right, so turn it over to the committee.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
One RFP proposal seems pretty light, and just curious, what channels did we put this out to solicit RFPs, and if you can just give us a little idea of the due diligence we paid to make sure we got the maximum amount of RFPs.
Most definitely, yeah. So we submitted through our same channel that we utilize with finance on BidNet Direct, and basically put it out there, and those are the only responses we have. So just like any other RFP we have that we've gone through, it's the exact same channel. It's a digital place where people can go on our website, they can find it, and it's also broadcast beyond just our internal Escondido website. It's a database where other agencies can find it, and that's how they found us. We didn't specifically inquire with them, they actually found us. So I don't know if Christina has anything to add to that. Yeah, it's the same standard practice.
Thank you.
Zach, was it correct that the firm needed to be Escondido-based?
No,
Okay.
it did not need to be Escondido based. Any other questions?
Do we have anything to compare this to know whether this pricing is what it should be?
Yeah, as a competitive, that's a
Yeah.
great question. It's personally for the first time I've gone through this process, so I don't have a comparison to base it off of. I could request the contracts that they have with the other local agencies. Some of them are larger than us, like Oakland, to see what they're charging for that. But given the scope of work that they have to produce the report, it seems reasonable to me. I know we have an auditor that does our city's finances. Christina could speak to that. Hey, great.
Hello, good evening. For the record, Christina Holmes, Director of Finance. Just to give some context to the fee for this contract, our full citywide annual audit is around $60,000 for our current firm, Clifton Larson Allen. So that would be the full citywide financial statement and our grant single audit report, about half.
If I can ask a follow-up question, what's the budget difference between the city budget that's being audited for $60,000 versus the Measure I funds that are being quoted at, ranging from $33,000 to $36,000 over the next 3 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our total annual expenses across the board citywide is probably in the $220 to $230 million range. Measure I currently projected is around $38 million. So a bit less.
Is that including the Measure I funds?
That would include the
The
Measure I, and
220
I'm
or
doing
whatever.
rough math in my
Yeah, no, that's
head. So yeah, with Measure I, it's probably closer to the $250, $260 million annually, at least.
And correct, there's no representative from MGO here tonight. Thank you.
It'd be great to talk to him. I think the concern here regarding the RFP, which they were very thorough, and I thank them for that. The fact that we didn't have any additional bids, as well as we don't have a representative from the firm to discuss their services and ask any questions, I understand we need to get this done. What options do we have to renew this contract, like next year, or maybe look for another provider if we wanted to put out another RFP? Are we committed to a 3-year contract with them?
We're not committed to a 3-year contract. That's their proposal, so we could negotiate that with them. Whether or not they would be amenable to it, I think that would be up to their discretion. So that's something I'd have to work with the city attorney's office on to see if we could put a clause in there that would provide an opt-out. We have that in other contracts with other agencies where we could opt out, so that's conceivable. But it would require work between myself and the city attorney's office. Christina, if you have anything to add on that, but it would be up to the city attorney. But we could do that. Yeah.
Okay, because I would, in all honesty, and I'll open it up for everyone else, my recommendation would be, if this is a reasonable price, I guess, for now, and it gets the job done to keep the city in compliance, but I think it would be in the best interest of the taxpayer to be able to keep their options open and continue, soliciting RFPs over the next year or whenever it's appropriate to do so, in case, for whatever reason, we're dissatisfied with the service, or just at the very least to give us time to do due diligence to find other firms that can, or vendors to provide the service.
Makes sense.
I think a couple of options could be an opt-out after a year or to shorten the overall contract to 2 years.
So this isn't the company that does the cities right now, correct?
That is correct. This is not our current audit firm. I will say the audit firm that we have currently for the city, that contract does expire with the audit of fiscal year 2026. So we are near that term, so the city itself would be going through a comprehensive annual an RFP process. So it is a possibility, if we wanted to shorten this contract, that we could add these services to that citywide request, if that would be the direction of the Oversight Committee. So then it's a little bit of a bigger package for an audit firm to propose on.
Any idea why they didn't want to throw their
I'm not certain.
towel in the ring?
I can reach out. I will say this is it is a bit of a unique engagement for audit firms, and if audit firms are already at full capacity with resources, they already have their clients, they will pick and choose at the size of the jobs that they bid on. I'm just speaking out of my previous historical experience. I can ask our current auditors why, but I don't have a direct answer for that.
No worries.
At least it would make sense to me if we maybe looked at using this firm temporarily and then rolling in the Measure I audit with a larger contract for the city for more competitive pricing. Because, just already it's half the price of what the city's paying for its audits for a much larger multiple of funds that they're auditing. And so, just the unit economics don't make sense. I'm sure there's minimum costs and whatnot, but it would at least make sense to have them do this year so we can try and lump this into a larger contract on behalf of the taxpayer.
I agree with you. However, if we're rolling this into an overall audit with the same firm, is it going to be looked at? I can't exactly decide how to word this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you want the same auditor doing the entire job, because our goal here is to make sure that Measure I funds are spent on Measure I items. And when you lump it with the entire budget, there is an opportunity to pass over that.
I think that's a fair point, to be honest. I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily going to happen. I think you can definitely, in the contract, and that would be up to city staff to ensure that Measure I funds are treated separately from the rest of the city. And then you put KPIs in place to make sure that they're doing that. But I think the concern that you're addressing is incredibly valid, and just further testament to make sure that we make sure that however it is we manage this, the auditor knows that this is separate than the general fund, and this is Measure I specific.
would it be incredibly difficult for next year to go it out to bid for, hey, if you want it all, we need a price, but we also want individual RFP, for just individual to the Measure I? Or is that something that's like,
I think it's important, well, from my perspective, to keep it independent from
yeah,
the other city.
I mean, I would like at least both, not just, lumped in, and, because you'll get a cheaper doing that, I'm sure, but, I mean, I think individually it's probably better.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's an area where we want to like cost save at the risk of losing independence.
No,
And
I
if,
agree.
If we were to accept this on any level, do we want to exempt this firm from the city audit?
So Zach, is like a niche firm that they do?
Yeah, they seem to be, it's a public, they really primarily work with public agencies, so that is kind of their niche, and it seems like they've targeted the groups that have measures that have been approved by voters, so they're going down that direction. And so you have options, and alternatively, you could approve as is, you could approve as is with the clause that we opt out after 1 year, you could approve a 1-year contract, 2-year contract. The challenge, I don't know if we go to them with a 1-year contract, whether or not they would be amenable. I just don't know if they would submit or if they would acquiesce to that, because they might have their own rationale. But with our city attorney's office, we could definitely include language that is very clear that gives the oversight committee the authority to remove, to switch gears and go to a different auditor. I think that would be a simple route to go. You're familiar with the contract process. That's pretty standard for us. So.
I mean, in my opinion, we want to keep them engaged in the process, and we could do an opt-out after 2 years as another option. But I'm just curious what everyone thinks about exempting them from being able to apply for the city audit, because it seems like we're mostly in agreement to keep them independent, to keep this audit independent. But we haven't voted.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, we have pretty much agreed here on the dais that we believe that this should be a separate audit. And yes, however, I don't think that we can create that here. That would have to be something that you do when you're creating that request for proposals, when you go out for the entire city, right?
I think that specific requirement would definitely be a discussion with the city attorney's office.
Right.
Because that, in and of itself, for the citywide, would need to be fully transparent, following the city's ordinance, all of our purchasing policies. And so to exclude someone, like I said, that would have to be a conversation with the city attorney's office on whether or not that would be a possibility.
Given our,
Sorry, go ahead.
It sounds like this company doesn't even do city audits. It's more of a Measure I thing.
They do, yeah. Macias Genie and
Or
O'Connell
Measure
is a
whatever
very
letter.
large firm. They do a lot of local agencies. In fact, I think they bid on the city's audit several years ago.
This one,
Usually enter into 5-year contracts.
The
Yeah, so-
company that is.
MGO, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
they're very well known.
All right.
Yeah, because there's very limited of truly like governmental financial audit firms that do this specific type of work. And MGO is one of the very well-known ones.
So this proposal doesn't have an off-ramp?
The proposal have an off-ramp as it relates.
The term?
Yeah, well, we haven't entered contract negotiations with them yet. So there isn't, as it currently stands, there isn't an opt-out clause.
I think from what I'm hearing, we want to stay independent. There's really nothing to compare this cost to, so if we can make a request to them for comparable costs, and then in that negotiation, see if we can get an off-ramp. For some of the concerns that the committee has, if they do apply for the full city contract, or if we're just unsatisfied.
And if you would like, one thing I could consider is if you wanted to, because I don't ever want the committee to feel like backed against the time clock, that like you have to make a decision tonight just because there's a time pressure or anything. So we could always schedule another committee meeting next month, and I could basically take the feedback, and instead of making a formal decision now, I could just go back to them and say, here's what we are looking at, a potential of 1 year, 2 or 3 year opt-out clause, et cetera, and see if we can come to that agreement and then bring forward a formal proposal. Perhaps they even bring a representative available to answer some of those questions, we could also do that as well, if that would be helpful for the committee.
Understanding we don't want to make a decision against the clock, but ultimately the work has to get done and we have to remain compliant within the 90 days after the fiscal year.
Yeah.
When do we need to make a decision by?
Yeah, they've mapped out their time frame. They said they'll do their field work starting in June. So I would have to reach out to them and see if we're approving it, let's say in February, would that be enough lead time for them to designate staff? I don't know, but they submitted the proposal with that timeline in mind. So they'll begin their work essentially in June. So I think we aren't totally back against the wall as it relates to time, but I haven't had that conversation with them yet. I think they were anticipating a decision tonight. I'd kind of notify them this was the meeting that was happening.
Do we need a motion?
So motion, it would just be depending upon what direction. You have options. You could approve the contract as is, or approve the proposal as is, and I can come back to you and say they were willing to go to a 1 year, 2 year, et cetera. Or we could just approve it as a 3 year and request that it has to have an opt-out clause, and that opt-out clause could be after the first year, second year, et cetera, and then either they will agree to that or not. So that would be the more expeditious route, or we can go through a process of scheduling a meeting next month where I come forward and bring the feedback that I receive from them with an opportunity to approve it.
Go ahead.
Slightly different question, not to switch gears too much. Looking at the price differences here in each year, what was the justification for their price increases?
Yeah, as I was seeing it, they have it tagged, just like any sort of inflation rate. I don't know if they had a certain CPI they were basing it off of or a 5% index. We do that on most of our contracts that we have with our outside vendors. They usually tag in like a 3% increase. So I don't know exactly how they came to those conclusions, but I believe it would be tied into something along those lines. I don't know if Christina, have you had any experience with that?
I agree. It's usually some sort of an annual inflationary rate.
I think it'd be helpful if we could to confirm that that's what the source of the price increases are. In the event that inflation outpaces their estimates, as we're trying to negotiate contract terms, I think it would behoove us to, if we can, lock in those rates too. So if we can have like a 1 year opt-out, but if we decide to stay with them, I certainly don't want to open an opportunity where they can say, oh, well, inflation outpaced our estimates, and then they increase the cost on us.
Do we know when they actually sent in their, the RFP for themselves? Was it late in the game when they knew nobody else was showing up? Or?
I can find the email. I forget the exact deadline. I want to say it was November 7th. I think we issued the RFP October 6th, if I'm not mistaken, October 7th, and it was around November 6th or 7th, and it was closer to that deadline. It wasn't earlier on in the process, but I might be able to find that email. One moment.
And do they know if anybody else has put in a?
No, at that time, none of the other submissions would have been published or public information. So,
Okay.
and I don't know if they talked to one another outside of normal channels, but they wouldn't have known that they received it. So I received that from them on Monday, October 27th, 2025. So that was when they submitted the proposal, and the deadline was I think it was November 6th or the 7th. I'd have to verify, but it was that Friday of that November week.
Zach, was there communication inviting them to this meeting?
I let them know the meeting was going to take place. I invited them, but no representative is here tonight.
Did they respond?
They did. They said that they were aware of the meeting. They didn't say whether or not they were going to have anyone attend, no. Yeah.
With regard to the fees and the increases, if you look at page 51 in our packet, the professional fees are broken down by the type of hours, how many hours per, and shows you how that's calculated.
Well, seeing that they're the only ones that
applied for it. I'll make a motion that we approve this tentatively based on an opt-out that you can negotiate, and we'll go from there.
I second that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
So what happens if they opt out?
If they, I'll notify you if they're not amenable to having an opt-out clause. So I'll notify the committee. We could always schedule a second meeting to reissue the RFP. I'll notify you immediately, but I'll work with the city attorney's office right after this meeting ends and begin the process of figuring out how we can create an opt-out clause.
And are we looking for an opt-out after the first year or 2 years? As Sabrina has suggested, we want a 1 year out?
I would push for a 1 year.
Okay.
I think we need to go into that open-mindedly in the negotiation process, though. I mean, at this point, with only one group there, if we opt out and go through the RFP process and everybody washes their hands of it going, this is going to be a nightmare and we don't want to be involved, then
Yeah, there is no guarantee that if we do an RFP that the result will be different. I guess that's if we would have more firms apply, that we utilize the same channels, but I don't know if we have even more effective communication methods to really get the word out. I think most of the audit firms who are in public agency are aware that we were seeking their services, but that's just something.
I think the opt-out would be, if you could communicate with them, that the opt-out would be to ensure there's independence with the next city contract, and that would be the reason why.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
And,
Then.
I mean, that would be my opinion on it.
That's a great point. I'm not sure that it's our only reason for it, though, right? And I hear you that we have to be flexible. It's a good way to lead the conversation. Yeah. And that happens in a year, you said, correct?
Yes, we will start the process. So it will be with the fiscal year 2026 audit will be the last year under this current contract. So usually those statements are issued around December, January. So it'd be about a year from now that we would be doing that proposal process.
Thank you.
And that would be after they'd submitted their report, if you were to
Correct.
select MGO. So yeah, it'd be like a fresh start time where they're not working on our items.
I'm sorry, Zach, could you tell me how that motion was made?
Yeah, so is a motion by Chair Hall, seconded by Committee Covington, to approve the contract with an opt-out clause after 1 year. And that's essentially how I have it.
And if they don't agree to an opt-out,
I'll come back to the committee. I will not proceed with having any contract signed or anything to that extent. I'll come back to the committee, schedule a special meeting, and then we'll reissue the RFP. Unless you want me to do otherwise. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I'm anticipating a willingness, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's pretty common to have opt-out clauses. Any other?
Should we have a vote?
So yeah, voting is open, and if you need to, you can just click the home panel on your page. I'll take you back to the voting screen, and then you'll be able to submit your vote. And then once you have the vote submitted, you can actually hit submit, and it'll display on the screen. And the motion is approved. 5-0. 1 second, just that public can see. All right. Motion approved, 5-0. And that takes us on to future agenda items. And this is an opportunity if any of the committee members have items you'd like on a future agenda for our next meeting, or if you have any reports that you want to provide, meetings that you've held in the community, that would be a great time for that.
We discussed having a presentation that you could help us put together for the community to help us with our obligation to interact with the community, such as Rotary groups and other organizations in the area. So that was discussed. I would just like to put that on the record, that you will assist us with a presentation that any of us can use for different venues.
Perfect. Thank you. And for the rest of the committee members, I'll put together a PowerPoint. I'll slide it, or a slide deck. I'll send it to you by the end of this week. It's just a general overview of committee, what you do, the purpose, and also some of the bylaw information. That way, when you go to any committee group, you're utilizing the same one. Yeah, great. Thank you. Anything else? Anything else like on a future agenda? Any other reports you'd like to provide? All right. Seeing none, then turn it over to the chair. You can adjourn the meeting. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here, everyone.